we've got Apar Gupta, well-known advocate, who's also been talking about the issue, really someone who's backed the entire stance that the entire Airtel Zero platform was threatening net neutrality. Apar, is this a real victory for all those people who have been talking about saving the internet, who've been talking about net neutrality?
I would say this is a positive statement from Flipkart, and this should be appreciated, not only for the fact that this represents some sort of victory for network neutrality, but the process of consultation and formation of network neutrality is at this moment on. And any violations or any kind of status which is consolidated on this goes to influence public behavior in the future. So what I would request is, this is not adversarial. It is not against a specific company, a specific platform. It is essentially an engagement on principles, and when the TRAI is having a consultation at this point of time, all we can request is all stakeholders not to roll out services which are violating network neutrality and not to raise these kind of issues at this point of time. And in fact, the statement of the minister is also quite heartening, in which he states that by the middle of May, when the report comes, we can look at a network neutrality regulation. So, let's not hurry and let's not rush into things. Let's wait and see what form and how the regulator considers the diverse stakeholder interests which are involved in it, which of course include the telecom companies itself.
Right, Apar, stay with us, because we've got the representative of the telecom company, someone who's really considered the last voice as far as the telecom industry is concerned. Rajan Matthews, Director General of the Cellular Operators Association of India, joining us now. Mr. Matthews, the big breaking news, of course, is the fact that Flipkart has decided to end its discussions with Airtel for the Airtel Zero platform. You just heard what Apar say. It's a big thumbs up to the advocates of net neutrality. Your first reaction, sir?
So first of all, I think we need to understand and define what net neutrality means. I think everybody assumes what they understand by net neutrality, and we go on those assumptions. Globally and internationally, net neutrality is being discussed and debated, and different jurisdictions and countries have differing understandings and definitions of net neutrality. I think the statement is appropriate by saying is that, look, let's discuss this, let's debate it. TRAI is discussing it. The DOT has got a team looking into it. So I think in the Indian context, we need to emerge in terms of what is an appropriate definition of net neutrality in the Indian context. We have 1 billion customers that are not even connected to the net. So I think we have some rather large tasks, and net neutrality needs to be appropriately defined in that Indian context.
Mr. Matthews, we'll get to the entire concept, and we understand that there's been a lot of debate. It's an evolving concept, but on the whole, do you not see this as a big blow for Airtel and its plans, or for the telecom industry as such, that has been really rallying behind the concept, trying to make users understand why this was important?
So, Shweta, not at all. I think what has been erroneously lumped together is net neutrality and zero rating. They are two separate and distinct sort of constructs and issues. If you look even at the American situation, the FCC very clearly bifurcated those two issues and said, listen, we have three criteria for net neutrality, and we are not opining on zero rating, and we will look at it on a case-by-case basis, and they therefore did not put the two together in terms of net neutrality. So when you look at what Airtel has done, it's a bilateral commercial negotiation that tries to do certain things in terms of the interest and commercial interest of Airtel, and also in the interest of the consumer. So we should let those be bilateral as well as we go forward. I don't know that it's a great victory or failure for anything. I think it's part of the debate.
It's part of the debate, but a larger question to you, Mr. Matthews, is, are telecom operators in favor of net neutrality? Yes or no answer?
Shweta, that question is like saying, have I stopped beating my wife? I think some answer that you are asking me to give in the context of a lack of definition as to what net neutrality means for us, which is being evolved, which is being debated, which is being looked at by TRAI, which is being looked at by DOT, has to have that definition first before I can answer the question, am I in favor of it or not? Today, I may have my own definition of net neutrality, and I can say, yes, I'm in favor of that definition, and so that I'm not sure where that takes us.
there's a broadly globally accepted definition, so to say, or understanding of what net neutrality really means. And the big debate, what's been at the heart of this debate, is allowing preferential treatment to certain websites or players using the telecom network, and that is what has led to the extreme backlash. Given our overall understanding of net neutrality, do telecom operators support it, is my question.
So if that emerges as one of the component elements of net neutrality in the case of India, we will have to look at what the regulatory puts and takes are there, which is what the TRAI is doing. Right now, to say that, there's going to be some commercial arrangement, the TRAI will tell us whether those commercial arrangements are okay or not. What we are basically talking about is really three things. We're talking about voice, we're talking about messaging, we're talking about video. Those are the only three things we are concerned about, and we are saying, look, if these are regulated or these are under license, then we must look at the same offering on any other platform and ask, is that being treated fairly vis-a-vis the operators? So we're not asking for regulation, we're not asking for any major oversight, we're just asking for equal treatment so that we can compete on an equal footing.
Okay. Mr. Matthews, a simple question to you is, a platform like Airtel Zero actually ties up with certain players. In this case, we'll talk about Flipkart, because the latest breaking news, of course, is that Flipkart has decided to pull out of the deal. The fact that you're actually creating so-called fast lanes and slow lanes goes against the whole architecture, the whole concept of internet freedom, and that's what has led to the kind of backlash we've seen. Over 3 lakh emails sent to TRAI. Explain to us why you believe Airtel Zero does not violate net neutrality.
Because, Shweta, what I specifically said, that even in the most liberal definition of net neutrality in the US FCC bifurcated zero rating from net neutrality. Two separate and distinct issues. One is, bilateral agreements, commercial agreements. One is in terms of access and making sure that every customer has equal access. Now, when you talk about multiple speeds, please understand these are the network realities, right? If you have a different type of phone, if you have a smartphone or you don't have a smartphone, that will impact your speed. Whether you've contributed or subscribed to a 2G, 3G, 4G price plan, that will impact your speed. Whether you're close to a cell site or far away from a cell site, that will impact your speed. Whether your application is cached in India or cached abroad, that will impact your speed. So let's not sort of muddy the waters by sort of ignoring what speeds mean on the internet and what's the actual reality on the internet and on our networks.
Are you saying that there's been a misunderstanding and then the discourse has not reflected the real understanding of the issue, and we need to differentiate between what is called zero rating services versus the overall concept of net neutrality? But why would you shy away then from saying the telecom operators in India are not against net neutrality? Why wouldn't we hear that coming from the Cellular Operators Association of India?
Because we are saying that net neutrality hasn't been defined in the Indian context. We are debating it. The TRAI is looking at it. The DOT is looking at it. No consensus has emerged. Different people have different understandings and definitions of what net neutrality is. But it has not coalesced in terms of regulation or policy in India. So that is what we are about. And so therefore, that is the point we are saying, let's have a robust debate about it and contextualize that in India, because the rules and regulations in the US, in Europe, in Brazil are very, very different in terms of what we have to achieve in India. And so I think that's the point we're trying to make here.
Mr. Matthews, do stay with us, because it is an interesting debate and there have been fast-paced developments over the last couple of days, the kind of backlash that we've seen on social media. Apar, you've heard what Mr. Rajan Matthews had to say. He's, of course, making the point that we need to differentiate between the concept of net neutrality and zero rating services. In fact, this is what Airtel was offering, a zero rating service. Do you buy that argument? Do you believe there's merit in the argument that we need to make a distinction between the two?
So, towards that end itself, I think zero rating is a part of the network neutrality argument. It is inherently linked to it, and it is important for it to be considered. In fact, the TRAI itself has included zero rating as a point of consideration in its network neutrality consultation. Even the FCC example which is being cited of the regulations in the United States, which is the open internet order, and the case-by-case determination basis for zero rating services does point concern as to the anti-competitive effects. And thirdly, if discrimination is in fact being done, Why is it only being done in favor of a particular service rather than being in favor of all services? For instance, why is one shopping portal being preferred over shopping portals in total by itself? So they are in fact discriminating in favor of a player rather than a service. Finally, I would also like to state that the TRAI consultation paper itself is a cause of concern. It includes comments which sometimes seem to indicate a predisposed position in favor of cellular operators. For instance, one entire question is framed on the basis of a proposal made by a European cellular rights organization, and there are no proposals or any questions framed on behalf of user rights. There is also the comment that the TRAI expresses doubt that it may not have jurisdiction to issue regulations itself in favor of network neutrality. And this is a poison pill. Later on, any regulations which are issued by the TRAI can be litigated on the basis of these statements concerned in the consultation paper. As users, a lot of people hope that the TRAI listens to the voice as well as the individual emails and submissions which now cross 3 lakhs and have been sent to the TRAI. It considers them in the open and a transparent manner, responds to them, takes these concerns into account, and then holds a consultation. I agree the telecom operators are a very important constituency and a stakeholder of this debate. However, all interests need to be balanced.
Mr. Matthews, you've heard those arguments coming from our part, the need to balance all arguments. And of course, the one analogy that people have been talking about, it's almost like paying a bribe or a hafta, so to say, to telecom operators. So the minute you're creating this preferential treatment, you're throttling competition, you're throttling innovation. It goes against the whole spirit of providing a free internet platform, both for consumers as well as for startups.
Shweta, I think that's a red herring. You look at Google does not allow any application to come onto its network. Apple does not allow any application or provider to come onto its walled offering. So every operator, every company has certain restrictions in terms of making sure that the applications and the services are properly scrubbed and properly fit for use by the consumer. So to say that we do something different is quite disingenuous. Secondly, to argue that just because we have back-end agreements, look at your own network, look at the TV network, right? There's a broadcaster, there's an MSO, and there's the end consumer. Having an income from the end consumer does not prevent you from having arrangements with the broadcaster. That's a value chain that needs to exist. And so I think the last statement is the appropriate statement. It's a partnership, it's not adversarial. Anybody who accuses TRAI for being bipartisan does not understand Dr. Kula, does not understand what has happened in the last 3 rulings where he's taken down the tariffs that we can charge. So anybody who thinks that he's for the industry is really being hiding under a rock for the last several months.
Okay, Apar, I know you have a point to make, but I have a question also to ask to Mr. Matthews here. Really, the compulsions being faced by telecom companies right now, because while some are saying that this is really a nexus, so to say, this is the telecom lobby which is forcing regulators to make regulations that would actually allow telecom regulators to make sort of windfall gains or go ahead and charge consumers as well as websites. On the other hand, you're actually saying that the telecom industry is facing tremendous pressure, and what's really happening is that telecom operators are not earning enough revenues. Share with us right now, what is the scenario with regard to telecom operators? What is necessitating companies like Airtel to go ahead and launch platforms like Zero? Is it simple innovation, or is it the need to get revenues at a time when revenues are being squeezed? Mr. Matthews. Mr. Matthews, if you
so
can
first of
hear.
all,
Yeah,
I think if you look carefully, Sweta, at what has transpired, we get accused when we charge people, we get accused when we give it away for free. So we don't seem to be able to do either without somebody raising an issue. Now, when you look at the situation that has happened with Airtel, you'll notice that one, it is specifically geared towards the application service or the application providers and those who are developing that. So here's a situation when we have heard from the application providers that, listen, we're having difficulty getting on networks, we're having difficulty qualifying, we're having difficulty getting the legal enforcement guys to clear our applications. Here's Airtel coming and saying, listen, we'll give it to you for free, come on, try it, list it, we will support you and help you do the innovation, and here we are accused of saying, oh, well, that's inappropriate. Now let's look at this whole issue of saying is that we will subsidize the end user in terms of being able to utilize our network. So a lot of these programs that are being put in place, which are called zero rating, are intended for that first time person who's getting on the internet and is afraid of the charges that are being incurred and wants to sort of learn how to navigate the internet. Please remember, we are learning. There's a billion people who are not connected. We want to encourage them and not have sticker shock. So this is the way of introducing them. And what have we seen from the results of that? People who do this then go outside and look at other applications once they get comfortable with this particular application. So I think it's counterintuitive to say that we are against innovation, against other folks putting it out. It encourages it.
Okay, Mr. Matthews, I know this news has just come out and you may not have had a chance to speak with the industry, with the players, but a quick question on whether this would mean a rethink on the entire zero rating services for the industry. Secondly, is the industry itself united in this? We haven't heard from the other players, from other competitors, but we know, for instance, that Reliance Communications has partnered with Facebook for internet.org. What's the overall industry view with regard to zero rating?
So I think the whole issue about zero rating is something we're saying is that these are bilateral arrangements and commercial arrangements between two private parties. As long as they are done without a detriment to the consumer, without any sort of distortion to the marketplace, I think they ought to be encouraged because they are for the overall benefit of the customer and for the overall ecosystem. So I think in an evolving situation where the internet itself is evolving, where we are going into e-commerce and other forms of mobility services over the internet as well as the mobility networks, we ought to allow for this ecosystem to develop without crimping it and saying, oh, this can't be done, this can be done. Let's look at it holistically. That's why I think the TRAI process, which is an open process, is an appropriate one, and let's wait to see what comes out of that.
All right, so that's clearly a view coming in from the Cellular Operators Association of India, that let's wait and see. But given the kind of backlash apart that we have seen, 3 lakh emails plus sent to TRAI, the backlash forcing Flipkart to actually back off and say that they are pulling out of discussions, it almost seems that it will be impossible for TRAI to go ahead and allow telecom operators to launch similar zero rating services. Apart.
See, if we concentrate this entire debate on zero rating, yes, that's well and fine. But this paper is broader. It also concentrates on aspects which are very disturbing. They call for licensing of WhatsApp or any kind of communication online platforms, and even not online platforms which provide communication services, even otherwise. Now, even if we discuss zero rating and we permit zero rating deals, what Mr. Matthews says is in fact appropriate and has an effect on the customer. If it is anti-competitive, yes, the regulator must act even by his own standards. And what are those standards? Shouldn't the deal be publicly made available? Shouldn't other players who offer the same service be also permitted to approach it? And shouldn't there be an equal level playing field for all players? I think those principles, even if zero rating deals are permitted, need to be imbibed inside it. So, you know, we are hopeful towards the TRAI process. We have confidence as we go into it, and we also hope that the public opinion and especially the nuanced positions which are now emerging are appreciated fully by the regulator for the best interest of not only the users but also the internet, which at this point of time to a large degree is an open platform and allows smaller startups, companies and individuals to make their own individual storefronts as well as websites and sell their services. It's the low entry costs on the internet which are making it such a game changer. It is the two-way medium where I can publish what I want as well as consume information. And I fear that zero rating services, if not properly regulated or if not properly considered as to their viability and desirability, will lead to immense damage to the internet as it is accessed in India.
All right, Mr. Matthews, a quick reaction from you on what Apar is saying, that it's not just the issue of net neutrality as well as zero rating services, but overall some very, very disturbing suggestions that have come up in the TRAI consultation paper.
So we disagree with that. I think if you read the TRAI paper holistically, and if you know Dr. Kuller and the rigor with which he usually attends these types of issues, I don't think you'll have those types of fears. I think the whole point is that, look, let's not jump into heavy regulations. We are not in favor of, putting a heavy-duty legislative overarching regulation on this or putting it under license. We're basically saying, level playing field. And I like what he said about level playing field, right? You have these three services. If we pay 15% to the government, if we are subject to legal enforcement, and we are subject to other regulatory constraints in terms of not allowing spam to go through and unwanted customer calls, commercial calls, then people offering similar services should be under the same types of overall oversight. That's our particular point. Please take the situation in France, where Skype is being asked to be regulated. So other parts of the world are not, doing things very, very differently in that context. So let's look at it holistically. Let's wait for TRAI to look at it, and we welcome what comes out of it so that we can respond appropriately.
All right, so the big breaking news at this hour is that it's been a big blow for telecom provider Airtel as well as other telecom providers who were considering zero rating services that in many ways questioned the overall concept of net neutrality. We've heard Flipkart saying they've pulled out of discussions with Airtel after the immense backlash on social media, questioning the entire concept of net neutrality and whether India was moving towards a regulatory environment where net neutrality will be threatened. Flipkart has pulled out. We are waiting to get reactions, of course, from TRAI as well as from Airtel. But you've heard the Cellular Operators Association of India Director General Rajan Matthews, the man really who represents the entire telecom industry, still explain why net neutrality as a concept still needs to be debated. We need to understand the definition. Ketki Angre, who's also been tracking the story, joins me for a quick reaction. Ketki, for now, it is a big blow for the Airtel Zero platform, for the telecom providers, and a big thumbs up to all the proponents of net neutrality.
Certainly is, and what's interesting also in Flipkart's statement is that they're saying they will now work towards net neutrality, and this is the company which on the first day Sachin Bansal in his tweet had actually, when there was this backlash with consumers downvoting the app, giving it just 1 star out of 5, at that time Sachin Bansal in his tweets had clearly said that he didn't believe that the Airtel Zero platform was in any way violating net neutrality. Now they are saying that they've had the time to actually discuss both internally and externally, and they are saying they are now going to work towards net neutrality, and also hoping that there is no discrimination no matter what the size of the company and what the product it offers. So certainly this is a big turnaround as far as Flipkart is concerned, given that this comes at a time when many are arguing for net neutrality in the country, and the TRAI is considering bringing in a policy on that. Shweta?
Right, Ketki, if I could quickly read out that updated statement that Flipkart has sent out, and as you said, a big U-turn on their stand, where earlier they were clearly rallying for a platform like Airtel Zero, now saying that they are committed to net neutrality, saying we at Flipkart have always strongly believed in the concept of net neutrality, for we exist because of the internet. Flipkart goes on to say, over the past few days, there has been a great amount of debate, both internally and externally, on the topic of zero rating, and we have a deeper understanding of the implications. Based on this, we have decided on the following, and it's a 3-point statement there. 1, we will be walking away from the ongoing discussions with Airtel for their platform Airtel Zero. Point 2, we will be committing ourselves to the larger cause of net neutrality in India. We will be internally discussing over the next few days the details of actions we will take to support the cause. So they've taken it a step further, not only saying they're pulling out of discussions, but that they will also go ahead and support the cause, and they remain committed to net neutrality. 3rd point, saying we will be working towards ensuring that the spirit of net neutrality is upheld and applied to all companies in India, irrespective of the size or the service being offered, and there is absolutely no discrimination whatsoever. Mr. Matthews, one quick last closing comment from you now that you've heard the entire statement of Flipkart. It is a big U-turn coming in on part of the retail, online retail player.
So those are bilateral arrangements and agreements between individual companies. We don't, comment on that. But by and large, let us basically say, look, those two need to be bifurcated. We will look at those two situations. And again, please let us highlight the fact that we as operators don't want to discriminate, nor do we discriminate on traffic that comes on our network, then that gets passed on to the internet. They're two separate networks, and please keep those in mind. And so we are the ones who pay to bring subscribers onto our networks that benefits all of those folks who have applications on the internet. So it's a synergistic relation, not an adversarial one.
Are you disappointed with Flipkart's stand, sir?
Those are bilateral agreements. I don't know what other components of the agreement stand and don't stand. Since I'm not privy to that, I don't believe I can comment, but those are things that are on a bilateral basis between Flipkart and Airtel. There may be other companies that would be happy perhaps to do this. So we won't let one sort of company define the whole issue of zero rating.
All right, and that remains the larger question. Flipkart has pulled out, but will other companies jump onto the bandwagon? Will this debate of net neutrality continue over the next few weeks and months? Does it in many ways bring closure to what has been happening over the last few days with a raging debate taking place on social media? Those are some of the questions that still remain. But for now, at least, Flipkart, the large online player that had decided to partner with Airtel for its Airtel Zero platform that would give, in many ways, preferential treatment to certain websites and would cause partnerships between telecom service providers as well as online players, is something that has now come to an end. We're waiting to get reactions, of course, from Airtel as well as from TRAI, but for now, Flipkart has decided to pull out of the deal.